Thank you, Dr. Garibaldi. And to all of you, President Garibaldi, Board Chair McNamara, Trustee Suzik, Provost Sarkowski, President's Council members, distinguished academic deans, Jesuit and Mercy sponsors, other university leadership, and valedictorian Mary Payne. And as Dr. Garibaldi said, and the remarkable graduating class of 2019. To all of you, your families, and your supporters, congratulations. You know, I have a daughter who is just completing her second year of college, and so when I came up on the stage and looked out on this extraordinary panorama, I couldn't help but be moved and inspired and to take enormous joy in knowing that she will not only make it through to her fourth year, but she will do it with the same purpose, passion, and distinction that you have so impressively done. It is really inspiring to every parent to see what you have accomplished, and congratulations again. You know, in the children's classic science fiction story, A Wrinkle in Time, Madeleine L'Engle describes a tesseract, a device that permits you to collapse the distance between two faraway points in time. It's as if you were holding strings at both ends with your arms outstretched, and then you brought those ends together in front of you. The tesseract makes me think of your trajectory. What if you were to go back to your younger self, say 15 years ago, and try to imagine where you're sitting today and all the distance in between? Suffering through the endless drama of dealing with your mother, or your brother, or your sister, or your dad, clawing your way through the hormones and the awkwardness that filled up middle school, navigating the anxieties of getting into college, and then college itself, sweating through final exams, hauling yourself to obnoxiously early classes, swallowing tough losses on the athletic field or court, negotiating friendships that were way too complicated. I don't know about you, but I would have, all those years ago, been unable to imagine that getting from there to here was possible. But here you are today, and all those events have molded you into what you are and where you're headed. Hence, the tesseract, the 2 points in time reconnecting. Through your determination, your unwillingness to give up, your refusal to sacrifice your dreams, you have transformed the inconceivable into the inevitable. You have collapsed time to your vision. It is not science fiction. It is your new reality. And what is truly inevitable is that you are poised to make a difference at a time when our world desperately needs you to do so. Let's consider this world for a moment. One where enduring structural racial inequities and injustice impede full opportunity for too many of our citizens, where changes in climate are swamping our coasts, toasting our cities, and flooding our farms, where widening political fault lines breed intolerance, paralysis, and division, where the idea of civic discourse has become a quaint, idle fancy, where we seem impotent to check the power of technology platforms to broadcast and amplify falsehoods, hatred, and distrust, where artificial intelligence is walking into every workplace in America, checking out whose job is next to go. I know that sounds daunting, pessimistic, and even too terrible to contemplate on a joyous day like today, but it doesn't need to be. The only way to enter this world, in my view, is to be armed with clear, unshakable values that activate in the presence of these kinds of challenges. Now, I know that sounds a little bit generic, but let's focus the proposition by viewing it through the lens of the education you received at the University of Detroit Mercy. This university is deeply grounded in the meaning of citizenship, of living in fair and just relationship to others. The institution itself stands as a beacon of that value, reflecting through its administrators, faculty, staff, and clearly, most importantly, its students, a commitment to ethical action that carries well beyond the campus. You have given meaning to and valorized the university's principles of leadership, service, and community, whether by engaging in deep scholarship with trusted faculty, or volunteering at one of the university's health or counseling clinics, or helping high school students prepare for college, or joining hands with city residents to beautify and strengthen the Livernois-McNichols neighborhood. You and your classmates have cast in bright relief the power and the reward of what the journalist and ethicist David Brooks has termed the radical mutuality of service. Service to your institution, to one another, to the city of which you are a part. And the nature of that value, that commitment, is such that it will follow you. Actually, no, it will propel you as you build careers, families, and lives of community engagement. I want to underscore just how powerfully the university's value of citizenship has contributed to the renewal of Detroit. Through the enhancement of neighborhood resilience, the affirmation of community identity, and the acceleration of economic opportunity. And this while the city fought through a crisis of political corruption, weathered an economic maelstrom, and endured a nightmarish bankruptcy. That value of citizenship has helped put in place the building blocks of an equitable, broad-based recovery that is spreading from the commercial corridors of downtown to the front porches and storefronts of this neighborhood. In a word, the university and every student in it has been part of Detroit's second chance. You've studied here, you've partied here, you've dedicated tens of thousands of hours in service here. You have chosen to care here. Just consider that within a single mile of this campus, we will soon see families from this neighborhood enter the gates of a reimagined Marygrove campus to attend a dazzling new community preschool and a path-breaking K-12 school operated jointly by the University of Michigan and the Detroit Public Schools. Within a single mile of this campus, we've witnessed people like Giovanna Watson at Detroit SIP and Dan Patera and his crew at DCDC set in motion the revitalization of McNichols Avenue, or April Henderson at Good Cakes and Bakes and Mandissa Smith at Detroit Fiberworks lend their entrepreneurial energies to the reemergence of the Livernois Avenue of fashion. Within a single mile of this campus, we're eagerly anticipating the full activation of something called the Civic Commons Project, which will connect the Marygrove and Udmercy campuses through a bike and pedestrian trail anchored at the East End by the newly inaugurated Ella Fitzgerald Park. And within a single mile of this campus, we're encouraged by a new generation of African-American developers like Andrew Collum, Kimberly Dowdell, and David Alad, breathing life into the rehabilitation of the housing stock of the Bagley and Fitzgerald neighborhoods. And all of this is being done under the stewardship of the Lift 6 Alliance, which was formed 4 years ago on this very site, with Dr. Garibaldi taking the lead role as chairman. His work has cast in bright relief the university's commitment of thought, time, and treasure to being a full and disciplined partner in the community's revitalization. Service becomes a moral act of leadership. It puts values into action. But I want to also suggest that undergirding the broad value of citizenship, the wide arc of radical mutuality, are a set of even more foundational values. Values that create a moral gyroscope that prevents us from toppling over into ethical incoherence. Values that compel you to look inward to excavate the bedrock of what you stand for, what you dream, what decisions you'll make along your life path. So let me offer a set of hypotheses about what some of those values are. That you will be animated by the pursuit of truth and reasoned discourse, refusing to be drawn into the dismal brew of willful distortions and rhetorical hyperbole. That you will enter into disagreements with others in a spirit of respect for difference, resisting the temptation to denigrate your protagonists through personal vilification. That you will continually recommit to dismantling pervasive and persistent barriers that so shamefully perpetuate racial and ethnic division, impede pathways to equality and justice, and corrode compassion for the least fortunate among us. That you will embrace the power of a creative problem solving that calls on community wisdom, intergenerational exchange, and embrace of diverse perspective and life experience. That you will respect and celebrate every individual's inherent dignity, worth, and decency, refusing to marginalize those whose skin pigment, gender, physical conditions, sexual orientation, or faith differs from your own. and that you will be nourished by an abiding optimism about the perfectibility of the human spirit and the power of faith and grace. Armed with these values, you can demand a workplace, a government, a civil society as good and just as those people within it deserve. Because we can make progress, both big and small, when we have a big tent. A tent that is inclusive of all of our colors and beliefs and experiences. A tent in which communities can secure the tools they need to fashion their own path. A tent in which leadership is distributed among the public, private, nonprofit, philanthropic, and civic sectors according to their strengths. And a tent in which leadership is defined less by power and position and more by care, compassion, and community connection. So for the skeptics here, let me suggest that we know that this can be true. It isn't always, but it can be. It should be. In my lifetime, even if not in yours, consider the power of values-based change that led to breaking the despicable vice grip of apartheid in South Africa, to forging peace after a century of horrific bloodletting between Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland, to tearing down the Berlin Wall to unify two previously irreconcilable systems of government. Each of these momentous advances was fueled by values: equal justice, self-determination, religious tolerance, human dignity. And these are the values that will fuel your change as well. Although he was a Trappist and not a Jesuit, the theologian and scholar Thomas Merton once said, "The biggest human temptation is to settle for too little." So don't. Carry those values forged during your time here into the world to make the change you dream of. Accept nothing less, nothing. I think that you will find that you can build something genuinely important, something that can endure, something that recirculates your values into the shared water system of a radical mutuality. So let me make a down payment on our thanks to you all for what I know you will accomplish. You will make our world a better place. I know you will. So thank you and congratulations on this very, very special day.